at the University of Oklahoma, applying for neurosurgery match this cycle. And so I'm really excited to present our next virtual event as part of the WINS Medical Student Committee Residence Match Series. And so this event is Acing the Interview, Tips for the Neurosurgery Match. So we've had several events throughout the year that are focused on like the neurosurgery match. And so this is one of those events. As always, we'd encourage any new people or people who are here again who haven't yet to sign up for our WINS medical student roster. This helps you stay up to date with our events, announcements, and opportunities. So I'll give a few seconds for people to scan the QR code if you would like to join our roster. Uh, All right. And just a brief overview of our agenda today. So first, we're going to be starting with a welcome and speaker introduction. We have Dr. Quincy here with us, who's going to be talking us through the interviews with an interactive session with Kahoot, which will follow. And then we'll have some audience Q&A. So as part of our pre-registration, we do ask that if there are any questions you have, you can submit them there. So we've collected some of those questions, but if anything comes up during this time, go ahead and send me a message with your question, and we will compile those at the end for the Q&A section. So again, please DM all of your messages to me, Taylor Nisnik, and we'll compile those at the end. And then finally, we'll close up with some closing remarks. All right, so first I want to introduce our speaker, Dr. Carolyn Quincy. She's an associate professor of neurologic surgery and associate program director at the University of Missouri School of Medicine. She earned her medical degree from the Medical College of Wisconsin, completed residency training at UNC Chapel Hill, and then completed a fellowship in pediatric neurosurgery at Oregon. She is board certified in both adult and pediatric neurosurgery, and has been recognized with the American Association of Neurological Surgeons Young Neurosurgeons Public Service for her outstanding contributions to the field. We are so honored to have her with us today to provide some unique insights into the neurosurgery interview process. So if you wanted to go ahead and say hi, Dr. Quincy. All right. So the next thing that we're going to do is this is something that she did last year that was really popular. And so I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Dr. Quincy. So let me go ahead and stop my screen share.
Okay, I'll share my screen. So maybe a second. Okay, hopefully you can see it. Not a part of the introduction. I'm also deeply opinionated about all things interview. So hopefully I will give you some insights that will be helpful to you. So instead of me just talking at you for some period of time, we're going to play a little game. So register, give yourself a funny name. There's no prizes. So we'll play this and no one will win. It'll be perfect. So please just go ahead, scan the QR code, create a name of any kind, and then we'll go through them so that we can give you some pointers to be the most amazing applicants of the season. When I do this with interns, my favorites are not on spine call, not the shunt, such things. But anyway, there's some good ones here already. Pumpkin spice, love that. And then while I'm giving you a second to log in here, please send your questions to Taylor as she requested. When we're all done with the Kahoot, we'll talk about anything you want, and it's anonymized, which is amazing. So this is a great opportunity for you. So. Okay. Last second to go ahead and log in, and we're going to start. Okay, first question is going to be a practice question. If you've never played Kahoot, you have to be fast. What year are you in medical school? It'll come up. Be fast with your thumbs. Okay, perfect. This is great. An interesting number of people who are not MS4s. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're thinking ahead. This is amazing. But I think this content will be definitely perfect for those who are MS4s. Let me just, okay. And then there are 0 points in this, but apparently Lysis was really fast. So kudos to you. Okay, real quiz so that we can have some discussion. What is the number one goal of the interview? Okay, a surprising number of you got the correct answer, to be likable. I would tell you that even though most of you understand the goal of this, that you do secretly want to impress your interviewer. And I'm just telling you that you don't, that if you got an interview, you're okay enough on paper that everything is great. And so any desire you have to impress the person that's interviewing you is going to just totally disrail everything. So you really just want to be a relatable, likable person. And I think through your sub eyes, you've realized if you looked left and looked right, that most people who are in neurosurgery are not normal humans. So being likable is your secret superpower. And when it comes to an interview, you have like 15 minutes to relate to a person, and being likable and just having a normal conversation is everything. So if you can keep this in mind, I think it will really frame all of your decisions about just being a relational human and not feeling this like overbearing desire to impress the person. So I'm quite pleased that most of you on the surface realize this, but I would want you to really find that deep desire you have to impress people and like think about that, because it can totally foil your interview. Okay, hello. Doing great. Brain power. Another consult. Let's do another question. Which of these is the best of worst situations? Okay. My stuff is in the way. Okay. The best of the worst situations is that you barely talk about neurosurgery. And in fact, this goes back to the first point that you just want to be a relatable human. And so if the whole time you didn't talk at all, or you didn't really talk about yourself and you didn't really talk about neurosurgery, the better the interview went. And it's also fine that you geeked out about neurosurgery with somebody, but you don't actually need to talk about neurosurgery to relate to another human. So the worst things you can do is having too short of answers so that the conversation doesn't flow. If you dominate the conversation, your answers are too long, that would be bad also. And if you run out of questions and end early, that is also not good, because it just feels like, how could you relate to somebody that you like couldn't have a conversation with? So you really do want to have a genuine conversation, and it doesn't have to be about neurosurgery. When I was applying was the year that in football, Brett Favre from the Green Bay Packers he became the quarterback for our rival in Minnesota. And I'm not a sports ball fan, but like grew up in Wisconsin, so therefore a Green Bay Packer fan. And I never brought it up, but we talked about the Green Bay Packers in 60% or greater of my interviews for a huge portion of time. And I remember leaving the room being like, we didn't talk about how awesome I was. We didn't talk about neurosurgery. We talked about sports ball. Like this was bad. And it turns out that it was actually the best thing ever, that people just felt like they relate to you when you could just talk about life. So it's actually a great thing to do that. So anyway, yes, go Pack Go. Thank you for that. All right. Okay, let's go to the next question. Brain power, doing great. In a quiz with no prizes, just to be clear. Okay, Next question. What is the ideal length of the response to tell me about yourself, which you will answer 80 bazillion times? Okay. Yeah, it should be a minute to a minute and a half. You have like 15 minutes to relate to another person. And I don't know how many of you have ever really gotten to know someone with a narcissistic personality disorder, of which many neurosurgeons might have, but they only perceive that it's a positive interaction if they did a lot of the speaking. So you need to be 50% of the conversation or less. And so you want to present enough stuff that they understand who you are and could ask you more questions, but you don't dominate the conversation. So a minute to a minute and a half is great. More than that is not good. You're totally dominating the conversation. So someone says, tell me about yourself, which is the start of all of your interviews. You want to present like a chronological, I grew up in said place, maybe my parents did this, I got interested in medicine, I had great mentors, I went to medical school, I got interested in neurosurgery. In my free time, I like to do XYZ. You've presented like enough places and things that I could be like, oh, you went to college at such and such a place, like kind of, whatever. I might relate to you in that sort of thing. You presented a couple hobbies, I can ask you any questions. You want to give enough stuff so that it's not crazy short, but that it's enough information that I could ask you follow-up questions if I would want to. So any of your responses really should not go beyond like a minute and a half. And you should really be cognizant of how much of the conversation are you dominating. And if you're less than 50%, it's going probably well. Okay, let's go to the next question. Brain power, crushing it. Okay. What is the real goal of the negative attribute question? Okay, you guys are doing amazing. This is so important. It's not about the actual thing. It's that like you have an understanding about yourself and that you learned something. And anyone who answered the question like crush this. So let me tell you the worst possible answer I've ever gotten to this question. As I asked an applicant, tell me something that you failed at or you learned or whatever. And this applicant was like, oh, it happened in my last sub-I. And like immediately I was like, okay, this is going to be a great story. Great for me, like not for them. And the person had said that they were helping a resident do an EVD, and the resident had created like a semicircle for this incision. I don't know why, because they should be straight, but whatever. Anyway, and then the resident had to go do something else. And they said, are you cool? Do you know what you're doing? Whatever. And this medical student said, yeah, I've seen these. I know what I'm doing. So the resident goes to do other things to come back to drill the hole and like whatever. And this medical student had done the semicircle incision, but created a full circle incision, which is catastrophic. And so the resident comes back, realizes that this is like a whole terrible problem. The patient has to go to the OR with plastics to actually cover this defect. And so anyway, she's telling me something like really catastrophically terrible, which was a terrible mistake. But then I said, tell me what you learned about this. And she said that she learned not to make circular incisions. And that might be like literally the world's worst response to this is you learn the only literal thing about this thing. What you should have learned are things that helped you be aware of yourself for other situations. I learned not to make assumptions. I learned not to not ask for help. Like literally anything else that applied to other situations would have been a better response. So if you're asked a negative attribute, tell me, one of your weaknesses, tell me the time you failed. These are really just an invitation to tell me something not catastrophic that actually clues me into something that you have an awareness about yourself to be better about these things and actually might end up being a superpower. So the worst possible answer is that you only learned one literal thing. So don't do that. Okay, let's see where we are. Brain power has the fastest thumbs, apparently. All right, next question. What makes a question you are asking a good one? Okay. Um, yes. So you want to ask questions that get somebody talking about what they're passionate about because you want the interviewer to be speaking 50% or more in this interview to relate to you and to, um, walk away feeling these great feelings about you. Um, and so you have to like really put yourself in the position of the interviewer. We're talking to 10 to 15 people per day, multiple days. So when you ask a question like, where do you see the program in 5 years? I'm just telling you that my brain shuts off completely. And it's not the worst thing that's ever happened, but you become forgettable and this part of our interaction becomes forgettable. And it also screams disinterest because it's not a specific question to me or the program. So you want your questions to be extremely specific to the place that you're interviewing. This might mean that you have to spend hours preparing for every single interview based on who you're interviewing with. So if you're interviewing with a spine bro, you might ask spine questions. And if you're interviewing with the program director, more programmatic type things. So you want the questions to be extremely specific to express your interest in the program and make it seem that you know something about it, you're genuinely interested, and you're having an actual conversation that isn't just, just a, you know, what kind of resident succeeds here? And you can ask these questions, tell me, any of the things I just said in a much more specific way if you just spin them much more specific to the program that you're actually interviewing at. And so it's not difficult to do, but you do really want to think about that. The other thing about asking questions is a weird amount of people don't understand the power dynamic and they'll flip the question and interview the interviewer, which just doesn't feel good. And so really think about how you're phrasing the question and make it seem that you're curious about the program and you're not asking the interviewer, what do you like to do in your free time? Is a total flip of power and doesn't feel good to the interviewer. And so it should be a question of, I'm interested in the program, I'm interested in this place, without it being, now I'm going to interview you. So think about that, because think back to the ultimate goal, which is you want to relate to this person. You want them to feel good about you so that they want to invest 7 years and 80 hours a week with you. So, okay, we'll go to the next question. Brain power, still crushing it with the thumbs. Will you be asked illegal questions? Okay. Yeah, last year, way more people thought no. You absolutely 100% are going to be asked illegal questions. And I'm so sorry. It's not okay. I don't agree. It's the worst ever. Every year, I ask the students that I mentor, were you asked illegal questions? Like hopeful, like so hopeful, actually, that they weren't. And yeah, tons and tons of illegal questions. And I'm so sorry. It's not okay. So I really think no one tells you that. And I'm here to tell you. So you need to be prepared about them. Questions about, relationships and gender related things. So have a response ready. I also think this isn't the worst thing. If you have one or multiple people asking you illegal questions in a program, like thank God they told you who they are, that they don't believe in rules. And so that tells you about a program. And so, I think this is something to your advantage. Maybe it's one-off person, still not okay. But if it's multiple people in a program, I really just think that they're telling you who they are. And that's important. And I would hope that someday this is not the case because, like I said, it's not okay, but it is the reality of how it is. And I want you to be prepared for that. So, okay. All right. I feel like brain power is cheating, but okay. All right, let's go to the next question. Which of these is worse? Okay. Uh, I would much prefer no messaging than terrible or desperate messaging. So I love a handwritten thing, not because it influences me, but because I don't have to respond. But that's just a selfish thing. It's also fine to send me an email, of which I feel obligated to respond, which is fine. But I unfortunately, there are people who are very influenced by the love letter or the love email or whatever. So I do think it's good to send them of your expressed genuine interest in the program. I will tell you that when you do it poorly, it is way worse than sending none. Of just if it just like spells of desperation. So um, I do think you want to be tactful about this. The other bad thing is that if it feels like you sent me the same email, thank you for the interview, blah, 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 and I can tell you wrote the same one to everyone, then that's not good either. I would rather you don't send them to me. So much like when you're asking questions, it has to feel very specific, tailored to the person, should reference things that you talked about if you're going to do it. You don't need to send correspondence to every single person you talk to, but the decision makers could be influenced by them. And that's not how it was meant to be, and that's not how the rules work, but it is how life works. And so people can be influenced by them. I'm not one of them. You don't have to send me them, but other people are. So you could choose to do it, but don't do it poorly, and don't send desperate emails. Don't send stuff that is overly generic and could be sent to everybody, because that just seems disingenuous. Okay, see how we're going. Oh man, we have a new leader. Brain rot. Okay, I think we have a couple more questions. What is the worst way to prepare for an interview? Okay, yeah, winging it is terrible. You're, I mean, by the end of it, you'll be doing well, but it's because you've practiced by interviewing, and you should practice ahead of time for sure. And so winging it is absolutely the worst possible thing that you can do. Okay, I'm just making sure I see it all. Okay, so please don't do that. You should absolutely practice with a mentor. You could record yourself, which is cringy but important to see your own answers and get some feedback. You could write out your answers and edit them. You could use AI for like some ideas, but like certainly you would not want to read an AI generated thing. In general, if you're in a Zoom interview, I can tell if you're referencing notes or interviewing, like the way that your eyes are flickering back and forth. So you would never want to do that. Um, so you definitely want to practice. You definitely want some feedback from the people who are mentoring you. So schedule some time. Say, I would really love to get some feedback about my interview. Here are the questions I would like to practice. Come to them with like a ready-made set list. Anytime you're asking someone to help you, like make it ridiculously easy. You don't want to show up like you're coming to camp, as a kid and like, okay, I'm here, like give me my itinerary, because then it's really hard for the other person to help you. You want to come and make it really obnoxiously easy for the person to help you. Okay, I've prepared set answers to these 4 questions. I'm afraid of this question. Help me, craft that question. Like make it obnoxiously easy and clear that you want constructive feedback in this process. And that's by far the best way to do it if you have that person you can go to do it. And if you don't have a neurosurgery mentor, then maybe pick your most brutal friend to do this. And they're like, no, you're being annoying. No, that's terrible. That could be a second best thing. But basically, don't just show up and wing it. And this is usually painfully obvious in the very first interview of people who don't have mentors who do this. And it's really obvious they didn't prepare. And of course, we have some grace for those people, but like it can be really sort of devastating for these people, because like they're completely and I actually love it. I really would love to do all early interviews and get the like raw version of everybody. I think it's amazing, but like not their best foot forward. So you do actually want to prepare and not have your first interview be a practice interview and be quite so raw. So you do absolutely want to prepare. Okay, let's look at the leaderboard. Brain rot. Okay, brain power. I don't know what happened to you. Let's see the next question. What should you wear to the interview? Okay, perfect. Something conservative. Absolutely. Let's talk about why some of these other things are good and bad. Um, You absolutely shouldn't be uncomfortable because if you're uncomfortable, you will come across uncomfortable. So you can't be uncomfortable, but you don't want to be showing like rolling in a like velour sweatsuit. Like that can't happen either. You should be comfortable. You can't be like wearing pajamas. Um, being like individualistic and something that is very you is this is not the time. You know, when you're old and in a position of power, do charming weird things. But now you're in a bottleneck of someone deciding if you can do this thing. Like this is not the time for that. Same thing for standing out. You're a woman applying in neurosurgery. You already stand out. You don't need that. I think that that might be more helpful for men, but you actually don't need to stand out. So I would not do that. You should realize that you're applying in a very conservative field. You should dress conservatively because of the bottleneck that's occurring. And so this is not the time to step outside of that. There will be times for you to break all the molds and break all the rules and do the things, but this is not that moment. And I'm sad. I'm sorry about that because I love fashion and I love all the things that are you being individualistic, but this is not that moment. And it will happen for you when later on, but not in the interview. Okay, let's look at the leaderboard. Brain rot still crushing. Brain power. Wow. Okay. All right. We'll go to, I think this is the last question, and we'll go to Q&A. The interview is more important than your CV. Okay, yeah, it is absolutely more important than your CV because this your ERAS application, your CV got you the interview. You're all so qualified. It's all great. And at the end of the day, when everybody from the interview gets in a room and starts discussing you, it's this relational piece. Did we like them? Were they annoying? Were they weird? Did they wear weird things? Like all of these things matter. So the interview is a test of your sociability. It's a test of your can you speak about yourself, your research? Can you have a conversation about the Green Bay Packers? All these things. Do I want to train you for 7 years, 80 hours a week? So the interview is really critically important. And so any of you who think that you feel like you have CVs or ERAS applications that are less than other people. You just have to be more normal than the other people, which is a pretty low bar, if we're being real honest. And that should make you feel like a superhuman. And if you have like really impressive CV, you don't need to spell out to your interviewer all the impressive things on your CV. Like the CV, the ERAS application got you the interview. You have to relate to other humans and make them believe you're somebody that they would like to train in this interview. So it's very different. You built this resume, which is amazing. And now when you prepare for the interview, you need to relate to the human that you are interviewing with. And those are very different skill sets. So I think it's important to set those separately. Okay, so I think this is the final leaderboard. There are no prizes. Third place, smiley face. Congratulations. GCS 15, second place, amazing. And brain rot, congratulations, you have no prize. Okay. So much news. And
I
then
do
we'll
sort of
answer
want to know
questions.
who. Oh, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, okay. Can I stop
Right.
sharing?
I was gonna say I do sort of want to know who brain rot is. It wasn't me. So, all right.
Yeah,
We're
there are
gonna
no prizes, but you can definitely claim that you won. And we
It
will
we're
wasn't
gonna
salute you.
go
me.
back
Hi,
to the
everybody.
question. Okay, so if there are any questions that came up, please go ahead and DM those to me, um, and I'll be sure to compile them. 1 second. Okay, we've got some good questions already. All right. Okay, so for our first question submitted,